Today we're going to talk about making a pinch pot teapot. We've made our teacup and now we want to make our pot to match. So we have started with a pinch pot, which we began last week, and it's a fairly good sized pinch pot. And now we're going to start to shape it into our teapot. So we're going to roll it on the mat and really get all of those fingerprints off of the outside, get it nice and even. And anytime you want to even anything out, you can always roll it on the mat. That's going to get all your fingerprints out. And now we're going to start to kind of smush and squeeze along the top to try to get it to come in and to try to start to form the top part of the teapot. Now, this isn't going to be the lid yet. We're going to make the lid in a different way. But right now, I basically want to make it so that I can close the teapot all the way in. So I'm going to stuff the inside with some paper towel to help me keep the form, and then I am going to save that little extra piece, and I'm going to roll out a flat pancake of clay, and I'm going to cut a circle out of that, and I'm going to basically seal in the whole entire pinch pot into one piece. Okay, so I'm going to cut out a circle. I used something to measure the circle with, but you don't really have to do that. Just make sure it's big enough to cover the opening of your pinch pot all the way. And I am going to cut that out. I'm dipping my stick in water so that it kind of cuts through the clay a little more easily. So that's one tip that you can do. Now I'm going to put that extra piece in there so that this top part curves. You can see it's kind of a curvy, it's going to make it round. So that paper towel is helping me shape that top part that I'm adding on there. So now I'm going to scratch and attach really, really good, and I can't tell you enough that scratching and attaching and blending these two pieces together is going to be really, really important for the next step. So take your time here. Really scratch each side up, get it nice and rough, and really use a good amount of water. And you're just going to leave all that paper in there because right now you're using that to help it be stable as you blend all of this together. So use your fingers, blend it down, and then also blend it up. So you'll see that first I blend down, and then I'm kind of going around and I'm squeezing and blending up until I can't even see that they were two separate pieces anymore. Now it just looks all like one piece. I'm really using all of my fingers and blending, pulling clay up from the sides of my pinch pot onto this new piece in order to get it nice and strongly attached on there. And I'm just going to smooth everything over, take my time, again, make sure everything is good, and then we'll move on to the next part, which is going to be making the lid. Okay? Look at that. Nice and smooth. Can't even tell they were two separate pieces. Okay. Make sure everything is nice and round, and then it's going to be time to cut out the lid. So now we're going to need a smaller circle. And this time I chose a can, but you can make it smaller. It's really up to you. And I'm just tracing lightly around that circle first. I'm not cutting it out yet, but I'm just going to trace it, and then I'm going to kind of lift up my teapot and see, is that where I want it? And I can adjust my lines wherever it is that I want it to be. You know, with clay, you can just kind of lightly trace something and then just rub the line away and you won't even know it was there. So now I'm going to cut out, this is going to be the lid, okay? So I'm going to cut the lid out, and I'm dipping my stick in water in order to make the clay come out, or the lid come out easy. So you can see there's a little lid. It's curved because that paper helped it be curved in there. And now, as long as your teapot is strong enough, you can take out the paper now. But make sure your teapot is nice and strong and dry enough and not floppy, okay? But you can leave the paper in there until it's nice and strong. All right, so I have my lid. I'm cleaning up the edges with my fingers. I can see a nice, there we go. So that's gonna fit really nice. I can clean up the lid, use my fingers to make everything nice and neat on the inside, get rid of all the clay boogers. And make sure I keep that curve in there. Don't flatten it. Keep it nice and curved. And that lid is going to sit to the side for a minute, because if we just left the lid like this, when we try to put it on the teapot, it would kind of slip inside the teapot. So we want to make a part for inside of the lid that's going to make it nice and stable. So you need to roll a snake, roll a coil, okay? And then flatten it out into a pancake. And then we're gonna attach that on the inside of the teapot, okay? And this is just gonna be a little extra rim so that the lid doesn't slip down on the inside of your teapot. So I'm scratching and attaching that now. Make sure you use lots of water and you scratch and attach everything really good. Okay, I'm squishing it in there really, really well. You want to be careful though. You don't want to squish the circle too far apart, because you want that lid to still fit pretty nicely. So squish this rim that you've just made in there, and it's kind of slightly down underneath so that the lid can sit on top of it. There, you can see now how the lid sits on top, and it's not going to slip down in there. Okay, so kind of keep putting the lid on and off and making sure that everything matches really well, and that the lid hole for the opening of the lid in the teapot is going to work. Okay, now comes the fun part. We get to make the spout and the handle. So get a piece of clay that's about the size of a Snickers bar. You're going to roll it out into one long snake. You're going to cut that snake in half. One half is going to be the spout, and the other half is going to be the handle. All right, so we're going to make sure that's nice and round. We're going to check against our teapot how big we want that to be. We're going to, I think I'm going to cut this one more time. I'm cutting it in half. Then you're going to stick the skewer into that roll of clay all the way through and roll it. And that's going to start to make an open coil that's going to become your teapot spout. So you're going to roll that until it looks pretty good. You don't want it to get too thin. You might have to make a couple of these before one of them looks right. You just take your time, and it's okay. Like I said, we have a few weeks to work on this. So I wanted to cut the angle of the spout so that it sat up against the teapot and it pointed up instead of straight out. So that's why I cut a diagonal on the bottom. Now I'm marking it and I'm punching holes instead of cutting out a big hole. That is to become the tea strainer for the loose leaf tea that you can use for your tea party. So I'm going to scratch and attach this now, okay? And this is just the base of the spout. I'm going to work on the top of the spout in a little bit, but the whole time you're working, you got to be careful not to squeeze the spout too much, because then it will close. I'm making a tiny little snake and dipping it in the water and wrapping it around the base. This is going to bring extra strength to your teapot spout and make it so that it won't break off. So you can blend that in, or you can put that as part of a decoration. It's really up to you. I'm making sure that that's nice and stuck on there and that my teapot spout is on there really good. Now I want to curve it up. I don't want it straight out. So now I can curve it up, and now I can also cut the top the way I want it, which is going to also be at an angle. So I'm going to do that and clean up all the rough edges. Okay, and then now I can make the handle. So I'm using the other piece for the handle, and I'm pressing in a detail of a line just with my stick, just to give it a little bit of something. And then I'm going to curve around the handle, shape the handle into that kind of ear shape. And then I'm going to mark where it's going to go. Remember, your handle wants to be pretty big because your teapot is going to have tea in it. It's going to have water, so it's going to be heavy. You want a good size handle for your teapot. You want to have it right across from your spout so that you can tip and pour the tea really nicely. So make sure that you're putting it on the exact opposite side of your spout. Scratch and attach. Really push that bottom in there, really smush that bottom in. And then we're gonna make some little tiny little coils. Again, dip them in water and wrap them around. This is gonna be extra strength to your teapot handle, okay? Now we're pretty much done, except for the fact that I think I want to add a little handle to the lid. So I'm going to take a little tiny piece of clay and I'm going to smush that line in there so I get that detail again. And then I'm going to scratch and attach it so then I have a handle for the lid. All right, you guys, this is the process. So I know I did this really fast. You guys aren't going to be able to do this all in one day. So we're just going to take our time and make sure that we're doing our best. If you need any help, just let me know. Of course, I will be there to help you if you need it. Smooth everything over, make sure everything looks nice. And then I also have my teacup sitting here that is already done. And the handles on these both match. They both have that same line in there, so it looks like a set. It'll work really great to pour my tea into my teacup. Have fun.